What's up, guys? Welcome to sWs Shootin' with Shane, episode 3. With me today, very honored to have this man here. I just did his podcast last night with him. Now he's returning the favor, and he's on mine. So with me today, Mr. Shane Eugene Cowsert, a.k.a. J.H. Hogg, owner and operator of AACW Wrestling in Kokomo, Indiana. Shane, how you doing, man?
What's up, my brother?
Doing all right?
How you doing? Yes.
So real quick, man, let's go ahead and jump into this real fast. I know we were just talking about this before the camera rolled, and I was really liking where it was going, so let's keep this going. You're an old school guy.
I am.
You're an old school wrestler, retired.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's just say inactive.
Inactive, okay.
I'm 47 now. I just turned 47 the 1st of June. What's up, brother? I just turned 47 the 1st of June, and my body give out on me a little bit too soon, but I'm thinking that the fact if I could get back down, and get back down to where I could actually do some performance, I think for somebody like you who's became an all-out AACW fan, it would be a treat, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I think it would be a treat for you to see me entertain for the people.
Yeah.
And basically, what I want to bring out and what I want to do would basically kind of like flip everybody's minds out a little bit. So we'll see.
Okay.
But right now, yes, I guess you could say I'm kind of semi-retired and active, whatever. But there are a lot of guys, as you know, that try to call me out and try to push some buttons to try to get me to come from behind the table and try to see if they can.
Do you see yourself getting pushed to the limit where you're like, all right, you know what, you've asked for it, you want me, and as this term, as they would use, all right, old man, can you still go?
They do use that.
Is it going to come to that point where you're going to come from behind the table and maybe not just be in a corner, but you're going to be like, all right, you little young buck, you want this old man? You got this old man. You going to step back in the ring? Is there a plan for you to step back in the ring? Do you want to see yourself in there? And if you do step back in, one guy in AACW that you would get in those ropes with, who would that guy be?
Well, I don't really think there's a plan. I can't say, if they keep pressing buttons, it's an old saying, like, as you keep pushing the, you keep poking the bear, poke. Eventually you're going to wake him up and he's going to, he's going to kick your ass.
Absolutely.
So, the thing about it is, I think I can still go.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be crazy because the fact of the matter is, I know I get blown up quicker than anything, but, once I hear the fans, once they, once I feel the electricity coming in from the building and if you look back and see some of my work, man, from the past, my music, my theme music, I come out to, Thank God I'm a Country Boy by John Denver.
Okay, right on.
And, there's parts of that song right there that just kind of gets you, it just gets you in the moment, man, makes you feel good. It's a feel-good song, so, I wait behind the curtain, and, everybody claps, everybody gets ready, and it's the build-up, man. And, the thing about it is like when I come through that curtain, I gotta know they're ready because, I'll wait. I'll make them wait for me. Like, I think that's like a good maybe, I don't know, minute and a half, 2 minutes, and that whole stuff's going on down there. And then once it hits, man, it comes up, boom. That's it. That's the climax. We rolling. We ready to go. Let's go out there and it just flip the switch and turn something on, man. And that's when J.H. Hogg is born. And, for people who have known me and seen me perform, man, it's, it's been kind of a treat and I miss it. But the one thing that kind of took over, and to answer your question, because I kind of got off of that, but, I can't say that there'll never be a time because you can never say never because things change.
Yeah.
So, if the time is right, when the time is right, and if somebody really does, because the last show, I kind of got a little bit emotional because I go back and I see a lot of stuff that happened. And, going back to the days when I was performing for everybody out there, it was always a numbers game. Nobody could beat me straight up one-on-one. And that stuff happened, and, with a couple of guys that, I bring it along in the show. And when Travis and Brody For people who don't know that, I'm sure if you can follow this. Travis Southern is our AACW heavyweight champion. Brody Bodkins.
Good heel.
Brody Bodkins is a guy who is a champion, but he's not recognized with that championship from AACW. But he still carries it out to be a part of, thinking he's a part of something. Well, them guys put the numbers game on Christian Cash, and Justin come out, and Justin kind of saved the day, Justin Terrell. And when that happened, it was still a numbers game because it was still 3-on-2 because Brody has a manager, and he comes out there and he tries to do what he can to try to mess everybody up and, take the heat, do whatever, interfere, whatever he's got to do to try to make Brody be good. Brody get the Duke. And I don't like the numbers game, man, because it should always be man against man.
Well, like you said, you've kind of dealt with the numbers game.
I've dealt with it my whole 25 plus years of dealing with it, and I mean, it's enough is enough, man. If you're going to face me and you're going to be the man that you say you can and you want to beat my ass, do it one-on-one.
Yeah.
Don't bring somebody to help you out. Do it. Be a man. Man up. Step up and do it. That's the way I always flip.
So is that towards Brody and Travis?
It could be Brody and Travis because Travis is carrying the gold, and the thing about it is, I never ever wanted to put myself over in my promotion. It only happened one time, and basically twice. It happened. Number one is we actually didn't have a championship, and my father had passed away before the show had happened.
Sorry to hear that too.
Yes, this was back in 15. And he had passed away, in the early part of June, and we had set away a show, or I think our show date was like the second or third week of June. And he had passed away on Memorial Day, actually on the 30th of May. And, my birthday was June 1st, and, that was a time where it was kind of a dark time, especially with my dad.
So you're going from death to celebrating your life.
And the thing about it is, it kind of takes away from that because, like my dad was always, when wrestling started, I started in 92. And, it kind of started just, basically what happened was it started by setting up the ring, doing just setups and stuff.
Your dad helped you do that stuff?
My dad, this is a funny story, man, because my dad, it's a serious story, but my dad, and he was a heavy machine equipment operator, and he worked for a company in Kokomo, give them everything he could do, man, and he was, he had went in one day for work, and the machines actually didn't start properly. They had to be, basically they had to be jump started to try to get them to start. Well, my dad was running a payloader, and he got up on the payloader and he went to start it, and when it did, it jumped in gear and it knocked him off. And he dropped to the ground, and the payloader continued to roll, and when it rolled over him. It went from I believe it went from his right side, from his right leg all the way up to his left side and ran over him. So, freak accident.
Yeah.
Guy, he gets on the radio and he's calling, hey, I'm that man down. I need some help out here. So they rush out. They call 911 and stuff like that. And, they get there to come with the emergency and rescue and shit like that. And they kind of wait around and it's like, what are you doing? He's still up there, he's breathing. So, had multiple surgeries. He come through that, had multiple surgeries. He laid in intensive care for a number of weeks. This was back when I was like 6 years old, bro. And going from not having a father, because he had been involved in a freak accident, not having a father that could go out and, play baseball, pitch the ball to you, pitch the football and stuff like that, and do things like a father-son would do. Our release and our time together after he was able to get around and move together was watching wrestling. Because I was born into this. I was born into the love of wrestling myself. My grandmother, man, she was, she's a great wrestling fan.
Yeah.
My dad's mother, my mom and dad would always go. They would always go to the shows. We'd go see live events and stuff. My aunt and uncle and stuff like that. And that's the time that me and my pops got to spend together. That was our time that was given to us, that was taken away from us during the time that he had his freak accident by watching pay-per-views, going to live events, and then when I got an opportunity to come in and get involved in the business, then my pops was there 110% right beside me, man, and a local promotion, Bad Boys of Wrestling, out of Kokomo, Indiana, ran by John Osborne. you know, he had wrestled under the name of Mysterious Sheik, and that was my end of the business. And basically what happened was we started, you know, I started by my pops and myself going to watch the shows, and as a kid, a fan, you know, setting in the audience, you know, just watching the shit, man, loving it. Being a #1 fan, hated the Sheik, hated the Mysterious Sheik, because, you know, I mean, he was a dirty motherfucker, man. You know, he'd go out and bust your ass, you know, just for no reason at all. Everybody that he was wrestling, you know, I mean, they got dragged through hell. So, basically what happened is continuing to go to the shows. Yeah, I was getting older, you know, through high school, stuff like that. Got ready to be a senior, you know, my senior year actually, and went to a live show there in town. And Johnny comes up to him and he's like, kid, you know, he's like, you know, how long you been helping me out doing these shows and stuff, setting up and stuff like that? Man, it's been like 3 or 4 years. He's like, you ready to get in the ring? I'm like, I thought about it, I want to. He's like, all right, let's go.
Now, was this your first time getting in the ring?
This was my actual first time, bro, because back then, in the 90s, okay, like in the 90s and the 2000s, the early 2000s, especially, there was nobody that had a facility that was set up to take bumps and do training, wrestling training.
Yeah.
So basically what happened was my end to the business came from helping somebody just by putting in dues, by going up and helping put the shows on, you know, setups and stuff and teardowns. And then showtime came. I got my training and stuff, learned how to run the ropes, take bumps in the ring and stuff like that. But there was no facility where I could go in on a weekly basis like I offer to other people. And, you know, I mean, to come out, if the ring's set up, people can come out and they can practice their craft.
Yeah.
I offer that. It wasn't there for me when I had a chance to do it. So, funny thing is, most of my bumps were learned off of, you know, the concrete slab porch, doing the flips on mattresses outside. For sure. And, you know, then on show days when the ring's up, you know, an hour, maybe 30 minutes to an hour of ring time by hitting the ropes, taking bumps in the ring and stuff like that. And then the rest of it is just, boom, learn as you go, man.
Yeah, I know, like, we were talking last night about how little similarities of, like, being a professional wrestler and being a musician is kind of hand in hand in a way. You were just saying about setting up the ring and things like that. Now, I know, like, in the music world, you know, you start a band, you're new to the scene, no one really knows you, you're going to get maybe 20 minutes to open a show that a band who's been around for a year or two is going to get, you know, maybe an hour to 90 minutes. So being that new band and starting from where you got to start at and play your 15 minutes, you know, and do all this or whatever, your 20 minutes, explain to everyone, when you start as a pro wrestler, you don't just get in a ring. Like you said, you've got to help put that ring together. That's your responsibility. That's how you pay your dues, correct?
Some people.
So
some people have a golden spoon.
What are your thoughts, like, as far as like when you started and how you're training your guys now, the ring setup? Because I know a handful of my friends that are pro wrestlers, they say that like setting that ring up is so important because that's the way that it's like they have to earn that. You know what I mean? Right. And not guaranteed are you going to be on that card just because you set that ring up either.
Right. I mean, the thing about it is, you know, most of the time, I'm a firm believer that if you take care of me somewhere along down the line, I'm gonna take care of you.
And you seem like that guy, yeah.
And I mean, like, I'm a very humble guy.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, I understand what it takes to get to where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a team with you, I mean, like one man can't make fame by himself. You've got to have help. Number one is, you know, you've got to have people behind you, like a successful somebody that can help you along and push you along the way, keep you going, to make you keep you focused, keep you moving, keep you able to do stuff like that. So, in a sense, the way that I try to work with the guys, I mean, some guys basically that work on my shows, I don't really ask a lot out of you. And I have certain guys, yes, that I depend more on to do the setups and teardowns and stuff like that. And to this point, you know, they have, you know, done everything that I've asked of them like that because they respect the fact of what I'm giving them and they see that. I have some guys that are kind of like fairly new to the business. And you mentioned last night Christian Cash. Christian Cash, you know, he drives, you know, he's about an hour away from us.
He lives in Indy,
Yeah,
right?
he lives in Indy, yes.
Okay, yeah.
But to the last show, the dude was so dedicated that he took the last 2 weeks before the show, man, where he stayed in Kokomo and hired him a physical fitness trainer to help him out, and he come over to every practice, every open practice, everything to try to move his game forward to where he'd be ready. And he's one of the guys that I've called on, you know, I mean, if his transportation and stuff like that, you know what I mean, even if not, he can't make it up here, he's still apologetic, man, and he's like, hey, boss, I'm sorry, you know, I can't make it, my ride failed, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, don't worry about it, it's good, you know, I understand, because you're a distance, you know, I mean, you got a free pass on that. But there are a couple other guys, you know, I mean, if I have a call out, you know, I mean, they busted their ass to try to do what they can to try to do the setups and teardowns. And I appreciate that, by the way, because it is tough. Most of the time, man, it was mostly there at the start was mainly just me and AK and a couple older guys. But, you know, I mean, it's not easy, man, with the teardowns and the setups and, you know, all that shit. Because there's a lot of extra work that goes into a pro wrestling show, man.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't see the behind the curtain shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't realize it until I actually started promoting shows myself, because to this day I still have, you know, I mean, the show starts at 7. I want the guys to be there at 5:30, no later than 5:30. I'd like to have 5 o'clock, but no later than 5:30. But then, you know, I've still got guys at, you know, 4 or 5 o'clock that are, you know, I've not heard anything from. They don't show up, so I'm still trying to scatter to try to make the card up. And, I mean, I get it. They don't have a contract with me. They're an independent worker, and maybe they're not happy about what they've got going in for them in the company, or maybe, you know, something personal's come up, or maybe they just want to say, fuck you, Shane, I don't care. You know, I mean, you ain't doing me right. I mean, but just be respectful to me and tell me, you know, if there's a problem with what I've got for you, if there's a problem that's going on, just be respectful enough to tell me what it is. Let's talk about it and see if we can possibly
fix it. You know what I mean?
See if we can come over that, you know, get over that hump and fix the problem. But yeah, man, I mean, it's tough. But the setups and teardowns, I think, are like the worst part of the whole show.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that you have to try to make sure that everything's perfect. Like, you know, I mean, rings have to, you know, the ropes have to be set at a certain, you know, certain tightness, thickness, whatever, so the guys can do the spots off the ropes and stuff like that. You know, it's just a lot of little stuff, man, because, you know, I mean, it never seems to fail, man. That somewhere along a show, there's like a little hiccup that's going to happen. But if you can try to figure that one out and try to figure out how you fix that, then maybe you move forward and you have something perfect. And that's what we always work for. Yeah. And that's why you keep going, man, because, you know, practice makes perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not every show is going to be 100% correct. Everything, there's going to be hiccups.
Yeah.
But you find the problems, you try to correct the problems, and then you move on.
Absolutely.
That's the way you handle life, man. That's life, period.
And then, like, I know you were speaking of Christian earlier, and you said that he, you know, he stayed in Kokomo pretty much a week and got a trainer.
2 weeks, actually.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And he got a trainer, and, you know, he was doing that for AACW.
He was.
And I know last night on your podcast, AACW Real Talk, we were talking about Christian Cash, and I said that was my guy. Like, that's the guy that I look at, and I think, man, that guy's a star. So then to see how humble he is during the shows and then after the shows and things like that, but then to hear that, like, hey, I'm going to stay here because this is where the company is for 2 weeks, and I'm going to get a trainer, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to eat right, and I'm going to train like this, and I'm going to come out here and I'm going to bust my ass for AACW. When you look at that and you see a guy like that, how does that make you feel, man, as far as like, okay, I created this company, which we'll get in that here in just a minute, but when you see a guy like Christian Cash who's willing to do stuff like that for AACW, do you look at him as in how I said earlier on your show yesterday about, like, that's my guy, you know what I mean? Like, he's an underdog, and I like those guys. Is that the guy that you see dedication like that? And I'm not taking dedication away from anybody else because they may be doing their own thing, but with Christian, I don't know what it is, I'm drawn to that dude. that dude is just.
Well, I mean,
he's a good professional wrestler.
A lot of people
he's very entertaining.
A lot of people don't understand. Christian has a lot of talents. Christian does, you know, he's a rapper. He's also an actor. He's a pro wrestler, and you know, he understands that, and he knows that the person never strain away from the person who can give you your ups and give you your start. And to me, man, that shows much love. And I mean, you know, I'm right now. It's tough for me to say the L word as far as love. We never said it growing up as a family, and to this day, my mom, my sister, and myself never say that to each other. We just know.
Yeah.
We know. I mean, you don't have to say it because you know.
It's like a look or
yeah.
just, like you said, it's just that feeling.
It's a feeling. It's what they do for you and the things that happens. And you know, I mean, the thing about it is, I feel like there's a few dudes that are really close to my heart that work for me. That basically, you know, it's easier for me to tell them at the end of the night, like, use that L word to them, because it's kind of like it's not the same feeling as far as my family with my mom, my sister, not knowing these guys, you know, like, hey man, does he really respect me and what's going on? And I feel like it's, you know, I can use that word to them to show them appreciation of what they've done for me. And you know, I mean, Christian is one of those guys. Justin Terrell's another one of those guys. You know, my champion Travis Southern is one of those guys. Rick Vidal has become one of those guys. Johnny Crisis is one of those guys.
And we were just talking about them last night. Great.
Chad Cross is one of those guys.
Yes.
Because these are guys that I've known for a while. These are guys that fucking believe in me and believe in the things that we're doing. And not to say that I've missed anybody and I forgot anybody. It's just the fact that these are guys that's been with me like the longest and shared some of the longest stuff. You know, I mean, you know, this is a business, man, that can it's supposed to be a brotherhood, but it's like some stuff can happen that can kind of like misplace that brotherhood and make that brotherhood kind of strain away for a little while. Because there's a lot of chit chatter, man, in the wrestling business, in the independents, and you know, like for many years, man, there was a lot of chitter chatter about me, man, and it's like, you know, I've always been straight with everybody. You know, I've never tried to put restrictions on anybody's character. I've never tried to put restrictions on anything because none of that stuff was ever done to me. Yeah. When I started out, man, it was funny because I was under a hood. I wrestled as the Executioner.
Yeah, let's get into that. Where did you? Okay, so I know you were talking about earlier about your first match when you stepped in the ropes. Let's start here. Was your upbringing, because you seem kind of like a guy like me, country guy, hillbilly guy? And I mean that in the best terms. I know a lot of days people hear hillbilly and they think that's like a disrespectful thing. It's not, because if you're a true hillbilly, it just means Southern comfort. It means you were raised right. You know morals and values. So, how were you raised that led into the J.H. Hogg character? Because I feel like the J.H. Hogg name, I don't know what it means. Yeah, well, but I have my ideas, and then to hear you talk about how your upbringing was and things like that. So, where did you start from? Where I'm going with it is, your upbringing, the way you were raised, and you brought that into pro wrestling, because I feel like you did do that. Where did J.H. Hogg come from?
Okay, when I first started out, like I said, I was under a hood, and I wrestled for probably 9 years, bro. Every promotion...
Were you under the hood the whole 9 years?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. Every promotion had an Executioner. Every independent promotion had a wrestler who was playing that gimmick, the Executioner. And one night we just come up to we was going over the card. Johnny was setting up the card because my first professional match was in my hometown, Kokomo, and it was against Top Rope Troy Miller. And you know, funny story that him and I talked about. It was really funny because like I could basically like shield some of the stuff because I was under a hood, but I went to pick him up for a suplex, and when I did, it was suplex, and when I picked him up, his tights actually ripped. So when he was put on the mat, man, his junk kind of fell out. Yeah. So it's like, okay, you know, and the people kind of got a surprise with that. So I mean, it's like But man,
and this is your first pro match?
This is the first, actually, no, it would actually be the second because my actual first pro match was against Greg Lake.
Okay.
And this was a veteran that had been around for years, wrestling for Dick the Bruiser, for WWA wrestling. And he was actually, I wrestled him as a Patriot. And ever since then, basically, Greg became a longtime friend in the business because I would ask him, like, yo, man, do me a favor when I go out there, watch my matches. Watch my matches and tell me what's up. See if, see the spots that I messed up, show me. Kind of like lead me along and tell me what's up. And he done that from this day forward. And ever since that day, man, I had much respect for him because what happened was every time I see him in the locker room, it was like, Shane, how you doing, my brother? And, hugs, hugs all over. And, like that camaraderie, that respect that you get from somebody else, man, is just like, it's like
how cool that how cool was that for you to have a guy that you respected that much and then bring you in the locker room and then like you said you were hugging and it's like, hey man, you're my guy. Like,
I think it for me it meant a lot because that was an old school guy that was willing to accept me being a new guy coming in, not really knowing anything green as grass. But yeah, he was a good dude, man. And like I said, there was a lot of times, man. The locker rooms in my day when I started back then, man, they were tough. A lot of these cats now, man, that would come in and do shows would not be able to handle it in the locker room that I come through. And, we had, at that time, we had Boba Brazil Jr., who was Calypso Jim for many years. We had Cousin Bubba, Dice Man Ronnie Vegas. We had Johnny Osborne. We had Big Red, the wrestling preacher. We had the Mountaineer. We had a lot of the TJ Powers. A lot of these guys were based out of Indianapolis, Chicago area and stuff like that. And they were guys that, would literally, if you disrespected or you done something, like we was talking, I said, if you walked in a locker room back then, and you were a greenhorn, you better get the fuck up and give them a seat because if not,
absolutely.
Show them the respect because they were the ones that paved the way for you. Mm-hmm. Show them the respect because if not, they were going to take it one way or other.
And we were just talking this right before we started filming. And like you said, they were going to get it one way or another. They were going to get
it, yes. Man, if you didn't give it to them, they were taking it from you.
Yeah.
That's the way it worked with them.
But back then, that's just what it was.
It was. Nowadays, man, the pro wrestling, man, is everybody's became a star by watching it on TV. Everybody pretty much started the same way. We all started pretty much in the backyards. So that's it really angers me when people say, oh, this is a backyard promotion. You stupid motherfucker, that's what you done when you were a kid.
Yeah.
You were a backyard wrestler. So you're going to downgrade somebody else's promotion and call them, his backyard.
But like you said, that's where a lot of people started from.
Started.
You went with your best friend, you practiced suplexes and pile drivers and power bombs in your mom and dad's backyard. That's what you did. Hey, let me try this move on you, see if I can do it. Hey, we should get more neighborhood kids in the neighborhood.
I had a friend growing up, man, that, he lived over on South Plate Street. And every weekend, their living room would turn into a wrestling arena. And I had like 6 to 10 different characters that I portrayed. But getting back to the fact of where J.H. Hogg was actually come from, like I said, and I said, I'm sorry if you're sticking there. I'm going to go all over the place.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try to come back to answer your question.
Hey, that's what we're doing, man.
So, like I said, man, 9 years under the hood as the executioner, wrestled the most two memorable matches that I have is my first one with Greg and the other one with Troy. Because those are the ones that kind of stuck out the most. But the actual time that I actually shed the hood, there was a guy by the name of J.R. Hogg that come into the picture that was part of, he was the Scuffling Hillbillies with Cousin Bubba, and he used to do stuff. He used to do stuff in WWA with Dick the Bruiser. He had come in and started wrestling again for the promotion BBOW. And we had Sweet Sapphire, who was also in the WWE as a manager of Dusty Rhodes.
Absolutely.
When she basically quit the promotion in WWE, she was doing independence and stuff like that. And I believe she lived in Louisville or someplace like that. And she started working for us on some shows. And true story, man. True story. Johnny would go pick her up, airport, whatever, and he would find her a place to stay. And she'd be with us the whole weekend. Maybe like 3 or 4 days before the show. There was a lot of times when she'd come over and she'd set in my mom and my pops' kitchen. we'd sit and talk about the business, bro. She'd talk about things with, and you know, this was cake for me because I love Randy Savage.
Yeah, yeah.
And she would talk about her time with Dusty when they were feuding with Randy and Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I mean, we're sitting there and we're thinking, you know, I mean, it's JR started to work and he was older now. So he wasn't able, and Safi, she basically managed him back in the Memphis days when he was working in Memphis and doing stuff there. So that's when she come up here and she was kind of doing like a little gimmick and doing revisiting the storyline. Well, it was under the hood and it was before we got ready to do a show, and she looks at me and she's like, you know, baby, with those eyes, she's like, those eyes are too beautiful to be set under a hood. And I'm like, I never thought of anything. And then JR is like, he's sitting there and I could see his wheels are turning and he's like, I'm older. I can't take these bumps anymore. Kid, how about being my tag team partner? I'm like, cool, man. It's cool. I'm thinking to myself, it's like, I learn a hillbilly gimmick.
Yeah.
Gets me out from under a hood. People can see who I am. I can have fun. And I actually started, when I had name changes, like 3 or 4 before I could actually get on them. Like I was billed at times as Little Hogg. I was billed at other times as Baby Hogg. I was billed at times as J. And my name that I started out that I wanted was JD Hogg. Okay, JD. But then, as we started doing that, going through the monikers and everybody announcing, you know, JD Hogg from the Ozarks, Dukes of Hazzard had Boss Hogg, JD Hogg. Okay, everybody started putting that stuff together. And they kept calling me Boss Hogg. I mean, at that point in time, it didn't really matter, but I was like, that's not the character that I want. You know, I'm not little like a little short fat guy that walks around in a white suit.
Yeah.
So I made a difference, you know, think about changing the initials a little bit to JH, which would stand for Jake Harrison. But, okay, going on, thinking about this stuff, and I mean, one day I'm just sitting at the house, and it's funny how, like last night, we talked about everything coming full circle.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother, my father's mother's maiden name was Hogg, and spelled the same way, H-O-G-G. My dad's father, his name, and his shortened name was J.H., John Henry. So, the initials that I took to go with my famous, or more famous, career, basically, J.H. Hogg, had tribute to my grandfather and my grandmother on my father's side. And my father had the love for the business.
Yeah.
So you think about that, and that's like, man, you know, I mean, that's kind of like, what, is that like God working in a mysterious way or what? Because it's like...
And it's funny because that's the name that you became famous under.
Yeah, J.H.
And you literally took your family's name and your dad's name, and like you said earlier, the love for your dad.
Yeah, I mean,
and now
it's
that he's
funny,
passed,
man, right?
it's still like...
It's like, it's still, it's home, and I think about it, and it's like, it's crazy,
but then in a way, it was kind of like an ode to your tag partner at the time. You know, a guy that you said you respected.
Exactly.
JR. And then now you're JH, but like you said, you take John Henry for your dad, and you take Hogg for your grandmother.
For my grandfather, because
you know what I mean, like
it's crazy, man. It's crazy, and it's crazy how you come full circle like that. And to me, it's like, I was sitting there one day, and as I was signing an autograph, it just like popped into my head, and I'm like, JH, my grandfather's name, my dad's father's name was John Henry. And I'm like, this is crazy, bro. But I felt it, and it just felt like it was real, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, then, you know, I mean, it's like when you got a feeling like that, man, and everything goes on like that, it's just crazy.
Well, it was like the feeling that you and I were talking about the first night you and I had a chance to actually talk at AACW arena. You know, we found out that our first name is the same, our middle name is the same, you know, 2/3 of our name is the same, and like, you know,
love for wrestling.
In the love of wrestling.
I love music, you're a musician.
So it just...
I wanted dreads, you've got dreads. We both have a, you know, I mean,
beard,
we both have a beard that's like crazy.
And
we both love the Macho Man.
And I was just going to ask you, I know you're wearing Macho Man, and I was going to put on Macho Man today, but like I said, my wife, today's her birthday, so happy birthday, sweetheart. I love you very much.
Birthday.
She got me for an early Father's Day this sweet Hollywood Blondes t-shirts. Thank you, darling. They're one of my favorite tag teams besides Hall and Nash, the Outsiders. But Macho Man, my all-time favorite wrestler. Hey Shane, who's your favorite wrestler? Macho Man Randy Savage. What's your favorite Macho Man match?
My favorite Macho Man match, and this is probably, I mean, my favorite Macho Man match is him against Ric Flair.
Thank you. Yes.
WrestleMania.
Him and Elizabeth come back together.
In Indianapolis.
Dude, that gave me goosebumps.
Yes. I mean, we were there, and, you know, I mean, it was a spectacular night because it's like, you know, understanding, you know, seeing him take the title back from Ric Flair, seeing her, you know, come back up and doing the things that happened, man. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's been so many great Randy Savage matches over the years, man. You know, the first one when he...
Well, look at the loser leaves.
Yeah. I mean,
Elizabeth jumps the railing. She takes out Sherry. She reconfesses her love for Savage. You know what I mean?
Well, that was actually a later WrestleMania, right? Because I think 3 was when, or WrestleMania
3 was
8.
Steamboat.
3 was Steamboat. 4 was the championship. 4 was when he won the championship.
Mm-hmm.
5 was Mega Powers. Right? 5 was Mega Powers. Where was 6? I can't remember. It was 6. I think it was WrestleMania 8 with Savage and Flair. And this was at the time when that was not where Ric Flair was pulling up the magazine and saying, you know, Elizabeth was with me before she was with you.
Yeah.
So that actually fueled fire to it. And being a fan in the audience right there, you know, seeing that at the Hoosier Dome.
Yeah.
I mean, it was awesome, man. But I mean, there's been so many great ones over the years, bro. Like his first title that he ever won, man, against Tito Santana, the Boston Garden.
We were just talking about this.
Yeah. And I mean, the match against Steamboat. I mean, I got to be set in with Steamboat on a Heroes and Legends where I got a chance to sit there and pick his brain. And, you know, I mean, it was awesome. Because I sat there for like 4 hours when he was doing his autographs and his autograph signings and stuff. And he's talking to me at the same time, man, and watched him do like a Q&A or like a wrestling, what do they call them? A wrestling seminar with the guys and stuff like that. And that dude, man, he's got so much in his mind. And he said with Randy Savage, man, and everything they went over, it had to be like perfect.
Because the guy would sit down with like a lawyer's notepad, the yellow notepad, and he'd be like, from the time the bell rings, this wrist lock to headlock to wrist point to this to that. And rumor was that if you messed up, Savage was just pissed about that because he always thought, I'm the best wrestler in the world. I want to be the best wrestler in the world. And when you look at a guy like Savage and you look at his career from where he started to where it ended, the dude did everything. I mean, he was the original high flyer in my eyes as a kid because I was saying earlier how I loved the natural Dustin Rhodes. I loved watching WCW Saturday Night, TBS, 6:05 Eastern Time with my dad, how we were saying earlier. You know, he's watching with your dad, I watched my dad. And I remember the first WrestleMania that I saw was WrestleMania 6, Hogan Warrior, title for title. And I always bring that up when I talk about wrestling because that was a time where, like, I love Hulk Hogan. I wouldn't particularly say, like, I was a fan of Hogan. I was a Hulkamaniac. I was a Hulkamaniac. I loved the Warrior because he was crazy and he was just fast and he was so just energetic. But then when it came to wrestling, and at the time as a kid, I didn't know, you know, I just thought, hey, this is wrestling. But when I look back on it, I go, man, I look at wrestling today and I'm like, well, the entertainers are cool, but I like the wrestlers, man. I like the guys that can actually go out there and do the sport of it, not the entertainment side. And I feel like that's what Savage was doing back then. Exactly. I mean, you know, you had your Hogans and your Andres and your Warriors and whatever. But then you had your guys like your Savages and your Tito Santanas, your Ricky the Dragon Steamboats, your Ric Flairs. These guys knew what they were doing. Yeah. With that being said, I have to ask, man, top 5, yours. Top 5. Start with 5, go to 1. Favorite wrestlers of all time. Your top 5 favorite heels of all time.
Ah, man, you put me on the spot right now.
Absolutely,
man,
got to.
I have a lot of favorites. I mean,
off the top of your head, who's 5? All time.
Man, top 5. I would probably say Jake Snake Roberts would probably be 5. Gotta have Bruiser Brody in there.
Okay.
Love Bruiser Brody.
Okay.
Love everything he done. I mean, the guy was just crazy. Done everything that was great. Junkyard Dog. Dusty Rhodes. probably before.
I was hoping, yeah.
And Randy Savage. Those
Randy
are probably
Savage.
top 5.
Top 5.
But I mean, you know, you got to also too. I mean, you got to also put in Hogan, man. I was a Hulkamaniac.
Yeah.
I was a Warrior fan. You know, I mean, I branch out everywhere. But
Yeah.
those guys right there, I think, and there's a lot of reasons why that is because, you know, Jake Roberts, when Jake Roberts spoke in his promos and done his promos and stuff, and when we watched his work, the guy was he was genius in everything that he done. And
He
coming
was a
from-
mastermind of the business.
Coming from the background that he had and everything that they had suffered when they, you know, as far as his brother and his sister had suffered as a family man, the guy had success, and he done it when he really didn't have, you know, the love of what a regular family would have to do. So he basically went out there and took everything that he had. You know, I mean, took it. He's like, fuck it. His dad was a wrestler. He's like, I'm better than you, and he took it and he fucking went with it. You know, and I mean, like Dusty Rhodes, man. You know, Dusty Rhodes to me, man, this guy's promos were on point all the time. His work, and I can relate to Dusty because I'm a big man. I like to kind of be a big clown when I go in there and wrestle. And I mean, a lot of people, you know, they consider Dusty and they say, well, Dusty's polka dot run. I just seen something the other day. In 1977, Dusty Rhodes was in polka dots, working for the WWE. At that time, I believe it probably would have been WWF. So he didn't get the polka dots on his run back to WWE. They started before. He was wrestling superstar Billy Graham wearing polka dots. So that stuff was there before. But man, he was the true American dream. He was what everybody wanted to be. I mean, like everybody could relate. And another guy that really done a lot for me that, you know, I mean, he would have been close and right up there breaking the list was Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant.
Okay.
I met the guy many times. I've been on shows with him. You know, I've met him, you know, plenty of times before. He's a great guy, so humble. Everything he does and everything that he does, man, is just like watch all the stuff that he had with Pez Whatley and Paul Jones back then, because that's when wrestling was wrestling, man.
Yeah.
You know, the late 70s going into the, you know, the late 90s. That's when it was the best, bro.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like you had characters.
Yeah.
Junkyard Dog, man, great worker that really done nothing when he was in the ring. He didn't work too hard. You know, I mean, like he had 3 or 4 moves, but the things that he done, he was an entertainer. He entertained people. And that way, the entertainment value that he brought to the match and the stuff that he done overshadowed the work that he put out, because he done very little work, but he entertained every match.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't see stuff like that, you know? And I mean, that's kind of the way Dusty Rhodes was too. Dusty Rhodes, you know, he was a worker. He did work well.
He didn't have a beautiful body.
No. But with what he had, the skills that he had and the things that he done, he worked well
His
with
voice.
it because he entertained people.
Absolutely.
He talked people like Dusty Rhodes, and it's kind of the way that I kind of pattern myself after a little bit, because it's like you have to be able to grab the fans from the start and
But
pull
he did
them,
that.
and pull them into where you're at by the finish. And that's what I tried to do too. You know, I mean, when I was out there working, and I mean, like, that's just what a lot of guys miss in this business now. They don't have that. Like, there's a lot of guys that flip-flop and fly. To me, man, that's not wrestling. Wrestling tells a story. Don't flip-flop and fly, because anybody can just, you know, not everybody can do that. But there's a lot of guys that can do that. But that don't tell the story, man. You know what I mean? There's a story that's always being told during a wrestling match. So you have to make people believe it.
Yeah.
You know, and those are guys that could actually believe people, make people believe stuff. So, you know, going back to the heels.
What's your top 5 heels of all time? Any era, any generation.
Man.
Because you know we've talked. I'm a heel guy. I like the heels.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, you know, I mean, I love Savage's run as a heel.
Macho King.
Macho King was good.
Yeah.
I mean, the first part when he debuted as Macho Man, and when he was doing his stuff with Hulk Hogan, you know, like Hulk Who and stuff like that, I kind of thought that was kind of the better stuff, because they started to change him as a person when he became the Macho King. And I think that was kind of out of his element a little bit, because I related more to the character that he was as the Macho Man. You know, kind of like
more than what the Macho King was.
I mean, because the Macho King to me was more like a cartoonish character.
Yeah, and I can totally
it was
see that.
kinda, you know, I mean, trying to change the way and work at that point in time for some. So, you know, I mean, To me, it's just like, I think he done his best work up until the time like the Mega Powers explode.
Yeah.
That was awesome shit right there, man. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And you know, I mean,
Well, at that time, that was real life stuff.
yeah, I mean, there was a lot of stuff.
There was a lot of
that was going on
backstage
back
heat
there,
between
yeah.
those two guys, man. They
And-
didn't like each other for the longest time, and rumor was when he, you know, God rest his soul, when
Well,
he
yeah, I
Savage
mean-
passed, like he hated Hogan to the
Yeah.
to his final
I mean,
days, like.
I mean, the thing about it is, man, they done a great. I mean, if people hasn't watched the biographies, the 8 series biographies from A&E, they need to check that shit out
Mhm.
because they're definitely great stuff.
Yeah.
By 8 of the 2 best.
And props
you know,
to
8 of the
A&E
best.
to do that
Yeah.
stuff, because I mean I was watching some things, and I've seen a lot of documentaries, but then like their little series, they're adding things that
Right.
necessarily I hadn't
People-
seen or
people
heard
didn't
before.
know, yeah, I mean, you know, it's very.
And that's the thing about being a wrestling fan,
stuff.
you learn every day, you know.
But,
So you said Savage.
I said
would be-
Savage. I mean, like, he's my all-time favorite, but I mean, like, I guess I can't say 1 through 5 because I kind of like, you know,
Who'd be your top guy?
my top guy of all time, you know, like I said, is
Top
Savage.
heel.
Top heel. Oh man. I have a love for Mick Foley, but I mean, do you put him kind of like as in a category?
Are you talking about
as a
Cactus
heel?
Jack Manson?
I'm talking about all of them.
Or
I'm
just
talking
everything?
I'm talking about the 3 faces of Foley.
Yeah.
Every character that he brought out, he had great stuff with.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, Mankind was the stuff that they doing with Mankind was amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, I mean, Jesus, Stan Hansen.
Okay.
You know, Stan Hansen was a great Mr. Perfect.
Any man.
Jesus, I basically like the Hart Foundation, the time they were with Jimmy Hart
It's funny you bring that up.
as a heel tag team. I really didn't, because I mean, Bret Hart kind of got still with me, bro. Once they take them away from the Hart Foundation and tried to build him up to who he was, to try to push him as Bret Hart, got still, man.
All right,
Got
now you
still.
brought up the Hart Foundation. I was going to ask you a question about something. Hart Foundation being talked about. I know what the Hart Foundation was. It was Jimmy Hart, Jim the Anvil, and Bret Hart. You know what I mean? That was
the
Hart
original.
Foundation.
Yeah, that was the original.
But then you look at the Hart Foundation later in the 90s, and you had the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, you had
Family.
Bret the Hitman
Family,
Hart,
yes.
Owen Hart, Brian fucking Pillman, and, well, technically that was it. That was,
I think there was another
Jim, I mean, besides Jim, like that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Like, that was the Hart Foundation at that time. Now, Owen Hart, and one of my personal favorites, Brian fucking Pillman. Shoot on those guys as far as, because obviously Davey Boy was a star.
Right.
Bret was a star. Anvil was a star. Owen, to me, was the better wrestler than Bret because he could do some of the things that Bret couldn't do, but a lot of the things that Bret couldn't do. But then Pillman, being a former Four Horsemen, because a lot of people have asked me, who's your Four Horsemen? Well, I got this set, but then I got this set, and Pillman's in that set with Benoit, Flair, and Anderson. Pillman as a Hart member, when Pillman came in, man, I mean, you know, he was living that life. Like, that was him. The dude was off his rocker, and I just thought, like, he was, but he could work, and he could talk, and he could shoot. And Owen Hart and Brian Pillman, what's your thoughts on those two guys from the Hart Foundation?
Man, you know, I mean, Owen Hart, to me, man, following some of the stuff that he done, God rest his soul, he done a lot for this business. And, you know, he didn't get the proper props, I think, that he needed because he was overshadowed by Bret.
I'll drink to that.
And the guy from day one, man, you know, I mean, them guys had a tough life because of their father and
Stu,
training everybody in the dungeon.
he bent
for
you
them to
and
come
twisted
out,
you
man.
any way he could.
And for Owen to come through some of the shit that he did, man, and to have the kind of ending to his life that he did was kind of painful because he was so talented.
Was it hard for you for him to end as the Blue Blazer and not Owen Hart? Because it was for me.
Man, I mean, still knowing the fact that knowing the Blue Blazer was Owen Hart.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I think it was, I don't know, man.
Was it poetic justice?
I don't know. I think just because of the fact that, I mean, just think that if he wasn't doing that gimmick, it would never, his death
It would
would
never
never
happen.
happen. So, I mean, Did they really?
So that's what I'm asking. Was it Poetic Justice to you?
Man,
because he was the Blue Blazer, then he was Owen Hart, then he went back to the Blue Blazer.
I don't know.
As we was talking earlier, things come full circle.
Yeah.
Was it just, you know, because you never know when you're going to wake up or not wake up, and that was just that man's time. And I know, like, we were talking about series, and I know with Vice, they did the Dark Side of the Ring stuff, and I've watched all of them with my wife so far, and the Owen one, like, that really hurt. Like, it really made me think, like,
at the point, it's like, why are you?
He was so good.
Why are you trying to bring back this character when he's established and better talent as
himself,
Owen Hart?
As himself.
I mean, like, you don't need this character, so it's like, why bring it back? So it's like, I mean, I guess the fact of the matter is, he would do anything that you ask him to do.
He was a company guy.
Yeah, he was. I mean, even though, you know, at times the Hart family was shit on so much.
They were.
Owen was still a stand-up guy and still continued to do what he was asked to do. And, you know, I mean, the thing about it is, you know, it just, things happen in life for a reason, man, that we never really understand why they happen, but they just happen. But, you know, I mean, he did with every gimmick that he wrestled, as, you know, I mean, because there for a while he was with Coco Beware, right?
Yeah.
High energy and stuff like that. I mean,
and great tag team too. They had a lot of chemistry. They were kind of like the Rockers in a way to me. You know what I mean? Like a louder version of the Rockers. I guess if you get louder than the Rockers, you know, I guess they.
And I mean,
do that.
the thing about it is, man, is you know, the fact of the matter is, those gimmicks at time were done, you know, that they put on guys were done as a basic punishment. But some of those guys flipped that around and made it work for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And became stars off of that. Something that was supposed to have been like a punishment or a joke on them was. Brian Pillman, what's your.
Pillman? Man.
From Horseman to Hart Foundation, you know, obviously got a connection with the Harts. He was never a Hart, but he was a Hart. He was honorary.
I mean, I'm still kind of a little bit up in the air about Pillman because, like, I love Steve Austin.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and I mean, he done some good work as a Hollywood Blondes. And he obviously done good work in everywhere he was at. But, you know, I mean, I think there's a point in time where you just see so much of one person and them trying to change everything and trying to recreate. You see too much of them. And I think that's kind of what happened to me with Pillman, because they were trying to recreate him at different times doing different things. So I think it's kind of like what with me with like Bret Hart got stale for me, just the same as what Brian Pillman did. Not taking anything away from him, but I think for me I think I just kind of got a little bit stale with Brian Pillman because, you know, just tried to redevelop him too much and he couldn't stick to one thing that was there. But I honestly do think that at the time when he was doing the Hart Foundation stuff, it was actually some of the best work of his career because he was actually taking his real life circumstances and putting them into his wrestling gimmick.
Yeah.
So.
And he was just being himself.
Yeah.
Like we talked on your podcast last night, you just be yourself and turn it up to an 11.
So, I mean, the thing about it is, I mean, in the same aspect that, you know, I mean, I can relate to that, but, you know, I mean, the thing about it is like some of these guys just got, you know, major stale with me. And it's like, it kind of like, I can't really like give an opinion of what they are or what they have been. So, you know, I mean, but I mean, as far as a worker, Pillman, man, spectacular. I mean, if you could wrestle a match and stay with Pillman, man, props to you because, you know, the guy was money almost every time he was out there.
And I think that, like,
boom, boom, everywhere.
The thing with me with like with Pillman was like he went from, you know, being Flying Brian to Hollywood Blonde with Austin. And then he went to the Four Horsemen, which, you know, like I said earlier, when they asked me who my Four Horsemen are, I got my original, not the original four, but I got my original four in my eyes. And then I have the new version, which would be Flair, Anderson, Pillman, Benoit. I just really like that little combo.
Yes.
But then he went Hart Foundation, and, you know, he came right in with Austin. And I was really looking forward to that feud because, again, Hollywood Blonde is one of my favorite tag teams of all time. And I just love the fact that when they brought him in and he got, which was always be known to me and my wife, and I feel like a lot of wrestling fans, he got Pillman with the chair on the ankle, and that was just really cool setup.
Right.
But moving forward from Pillman, again, God rest his soul, Owen Hart, God rest his soul. Let's talk about AACW. AACW, for you guys who don't know and didn't see the podcast last night, it's based out of Kokomo, Indiana. It's kid friendly. I really suggest you guys go and check it out. Really cool stuff. Very cool family environment. I've been to a few of them now, and I've had a blast. Great talent, great workers. Let's talk about AACW starting and where you guys are right now. Was AACW just something that you thought one day, like, you know what, I'm not retired, but I'm inactive right now, but I want to do something with wrestling?
At the time, in 14, when I started, I was still an active wrestler, so I was still promoting shows, and I was putting I was in the shows, on the shows, and I really wouldn't put myself over as a promoter because I felt that wasn't fair to the other guys. I mean, there's only 2 times that I really put myself over, and that was, one was because we didn't have a champion, and people thought that it would, you know, I mean, talking to people, as far as some of the workers in the business, didn't have a problem if I put the title on myself in, you know, honor of my father, because like I said, he had just lost his life to cancer, and he had dementia too, and it was pretty tough watching the last few days of his life, because when somebody, like, dementia is a silent killer, and to watch somebody be completely stricken down and stripped of everything that they know in their mind that they've lived, it's really tough to watch them go back to that, because you're helpless and can't do anything for them. Like when they're in those situations where they're thinking about their past and worried about things that are going on, you don't know what to say. And to see the person that you know that has been a warrior through their life, been the strongest person that you could ever see in your life, and you know, and thank God that, you know, he was my father. But to see him be stripped from his toughness, his individuality, and who he was that we were known him as, to go back and to see that empty person suffering from dementia that don't know what's going on in life, it's tough, bro.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
And my heart goes out to you guys and your family and stuff like that,
right?
Because like I said, I couldn't imagine.
And I'll tell you, man, the guys watching this podcast, if they watch this, my dad, man, he was always a part of the show, bro. And in 14, right now, I think that in 14, I can't remember who I was actually in the show against, but I can't remember who I billed myself. Oh, yes, I do. Troy Miller. I returned to Troy Miller. This was a guy that we started at the same time. Shared the same locker rooms together, you know, I mean, had plenty of matches before this together. Called him up, I'm like, bro, you know, I'm starting an organization, you know, you want to come in, you want to work for me? He's like, well, what you got for me? I'm like, me and you, let's run it again. All right, I'm there. So, you know, every time I asked Troy to come in and work for me, man, he was like, who you got for me? I'm like, it's me, let's run it again. Okay, I'm there, same answer. Loved the matches, man, they were great. We made magic that night, man, because, you know, I mean, at the time, Troy had his wife, Liz, she was escorting him, being his valet to the shows. And, man, they grabbed so much heat. And my dad was true to the business, bro, where he didn't give a shit. He knew the insides of the business, but he didn't give a shit. I mean, like, he would literally, like, take the shit for real. Yeah. Even knowing the ends to the business, that it wasn't real. When it's go time and it's show time, this motherfucker turned it on, man, and he was like, he was going to fucking give you, you know, the double thumbs up, and he was going to give you the heat. These guys literally wanted my dad. He sat in the front row every show. They looked for him for cheap heat, found a way to get it, and he brought it to him every fucking show, man, every match, man. It's like, he walked with a cane, and he sat on his ass when he was watching the shows, and he was swinging the cane, bro. And I mean, they had to duck because
he's an old school fan, man.
Old school fan.
Yeah.
He knew the business, and I tell him the business, but I mean, even though he was still a fan, when it comes showtime and go time, he'd forget about that. And click.
He liked who he liked. He hated who he hated, man.
Exactly.
But that's what made wrestling fun back then, though.
Exactly, because we need more fans like those now.
But see, I feel like that's what you guys are doing with AACW, though, because your thing is, AACW old school lives. And I love that because, like you were saying, your dad's swinging the cane. Ryan was talking about how he took an old lady's Mountain Dew and drank it. And that's cheap heat, like you were saying. And that's old school wrestling stuff that you grew up on and you watched with your dad. So, yeah, man, like to be able to sit there and, like you said, for your dad to just flip that switch and be like, it's showtime, it's go time.
And I mean, the thing about it is, man, is that first show in 14, then in 15 when I started, because I just had one show in 14 because I couldn't find a building that would actually be able to run on a consistent basis. So then I got hooked up to, at the time, it was Center Stage. And at that point in time, it was, I got hooked up there, went in, and I was supposed to do like 4 shows at Center Stage, and something happened to where, you know, they actually, I had one show actually, 1 or 2 shows, one show that we put on, and it was me and Troy again at that show. And at that show, this was a show that we didn't know. Like at this point in time, we started seeing my pops like starting to suffer a little bit from the dementia, where his mind would kind of roam a little bit. And man, we had a packed house, a fucking packed house at Center Stage, and it was me and Troy in the main event. We had so much heat that people remember it from the year before. I got the Duke the year before over Troy, and taking that heat back, coming back to revisit it, I had a whole countdown thing going, like from 10 days, like, and everybody understood, and we hyped it up with a lot of hype and stuff going back and forth. And at that point in time, I had a lot of family there that come to see me. Like a lot of them didn't come to see me. My mom has only been to like maybe 2 shows in my 30 years that I've wrestled, because like she never did want me to do it.
Yeah.
My dad wanted to live this through me because he got taken away an opportunity to have that from his mother, because he was approached at a local show from Dick the Bruiser, from Dick the Bruiser's brother-in-law, I think at the time, that was kind of scouting for him. My dad was at a show, and Bruiser was in the ring. My dad was standing at the drinking fountain, and Bruiser kind of eyes out to him and says, go talk to this kid. He goes over and says, you know, after the show, Bruiser wants to talk to you. And, you know, he's like, they start having a conversation, because Bruiser wanted to take my dad under his wing, make him a wrestler. You know, I mean, my dad was only like 15, 16 at the time. And my grandmother knew who the Dick the Bruiser was. Well, after the show, you know, they took my dad home to meet my grandmother. And, you know, my dad goes up, he's like, there's some people that want to meet you. And, you know, my grandmother's like, what? You know, and it's like, I know who you are. And he's like, tried to give the whole story about, I want to take your son under my wing. I want him to come, you know, train with me, work with me, do stuff like this and that. Grandma said, no, that's not going to happen. And at that point in time, my dad was 15, 16, so he had to have permission to do that. So he got that got taken away from him. And my dad, you know, at a point in time when I was able to come up and do this, my dad was like, hey, no way nobody's going to do it. If you want to do it, you can fucking do it, and I'll make sure it happens.
Because he wanted to do it.
Yes, exactly. So he lived his dream
through you.
Through me.
And then for him to get the cheap heat from the talent.
It was just bringing everything back.
Yeah.
It was like going full circle again, as we talked many times. So at this match, at this second match against me and Troy in 15 it was, before my pops had ended up passing. We had worked the show, man. I mean, like we were going at it, man. I mean, we were a good 30 minutes into the match, and my dad, man, it come to a point where, you know, Troy and Liz were actually like, they were upper hand. We were outside, we were duking out, you know, outside, going around all over the place, man, right in front of where my dad was at. Pictures that would prove, at the point when Troy throws me back in the ring, my dad is up out of his seat getting ready to go after Troy. And my dad is hollering at my sister like, hey, you want to let him beat your brother's ass like that? What's going on? And, you know, people with my dad trying to set my dad down and say, you know, hey, come on, Earl, settle down. He's like, oh, fuck you. You know, this is my dad's nephew. And my dad's like, really? I mean, he's getting into it. Like, he's wanting to fucking beat Troy's ass. And we're on the outside. I'm like, come on. Troy's like, man, we got to go home. We got to go home. This place is irate. If we don't go home, they're going to fucking kill me. You know, they're going to get me. You know, I'm like, we got to take it home. I wanted to go. Yeah. I mean, I was feeling it. I wanted to go. I wanted to keep it going, man.
Yeah.
But Troy was like, we got to go home, brother. we got to end this shit, because if not, they're going to beat my ass. So, you know, I mean, we finished it up, and, you know, that heat, and my dad literally, there was a lot of heat on me from that night, because my dad actually hit Troy's wife, Libby, with his cane, and she was very upset. And I told Troy, I'm like, brother, we tore it down out there, and I'm sorry about, you know, the swing and the hit, you know, for my pops to live. And, you know, there for a while, man, I think she was really upset with me, but then she understood, because after she understood, like a few months later, I think it was like maybe 2-3 months later down the road, we had found out that my dad had, you know, I mean, he had actually gotten sick, and we took him to the emergency room, and he went in and never came out. So we found out at that point, and at that point in time, when he was actually doing this as a warrior, fighting for me, trying to basically go in to try to help me, he was ate up, man, with cancer.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know that until we took him to the hospital, and he only lasted a week after he went in the hospital. But the cancer had just eaten his body so much, and it was just so painful. But until that day, man, like 2 months before that, you know, covered with cancer, man, he was still up there trying to fight for me and trying to be my biggest fan.
And that's really cool, man, because, you know, you grew up, like we were saying earlier on here, you know, you grew up watching it with your dad, and then, you know, you grew up in the business, you know, and you created your own business, and your dad got to watch you do that, and your dad got to watch you wrestle. You know, he didn't get a chance to do that, but you did, and then he watched you create AACW and kind of bring these characters and this talent in a new generation, but an old school feel,
right?
You know, and then for him to be able to get the cheap heat from the talent and things like that, but to be sick on top of that and still be able, you know, to show that support to his son.
It was crazy.
Like,
but I mean, it just now, man, thinking about it, it's like, it's wonderful, man. I've lived a wonderful life.
Yeah.
I mean, because like I'm a person that, you know, stays humble and tries to stay humble, but I still question myself on a lot of decisions I've made through life. But the one thing that I can say that I've done and I got right was I was able to make the right decision by being in the business, the wrestling business, and having my father live that part of me out through, like that part of him live it out through me. And, you know, he's my hero, but in the same sense, you know, I think that at that point in time, I was probably his hero.
Yeah.
Because he was my biggest fan.
Yeah.
And I mean, to this day, he will be. And and he's still there with me.
Yeah.
Every day, bro. And I mean, I talk to him sometimes. I've got a banner made, you know, where I try to keep it up and have him, you know, like where he's got the seat to see every show. Because there for a while, it was hard for me to go out and entertain, you know, like 5-6 shows, and have to look out there and try to spot him and not see him out there. It was very tough for me. So I think that's one of the things that hurt me the most, is because that was still taken away. But in honor of him and stuff, I wore a wristband, had his initials, birth and death date, and since then I've made a title in remembrance to him with his initials. Eternal Excellence Champion, which his name was Earl Eugene Cowsert. So I honored that title, had that title made up for him. Title's beautiful, man. It's got his birth date and his birth date, his death date on the on the logo. And man, you know, I mean, he's just been such a big part of what I've tried to do. And you know, sometimes.
And I feel like you've honored him in that.
I mean, I hope so. I hope that he can.
Because you do seem like a very humble guy.
I mean, I try to be.
About your dad, you can tell, you know, you're a little choked up about it, which, you know, again, I would understand that myself if I was in that situation. But like you said, you had a very close connection with your dad.
Yeah.
So I want to do this really quick, man, for your dad. Right. Cheers to him.
Right.
Before we close this up here, got a couple things for you.
Man, I'm having fun though, bro. Do we have to end right now?
Got a couple things for you to do for me here. First off, he and she who comes on the show signs the table, so sir, if you wouldn't mind.
All right, man. Got
wherever you'd like to sign it at there.
All right, man. I've been thinking about this to try to write it out, man. But think about it.
Anything you want to put, brother. And my guest Shane here writes this out for us. I want to give out a couple shout outs real quick. I always do. I have to. That's kind of what we do here on Shootin with Shane. So really quick, you guys can go to YouTube and check out Cocaine Culture's YouTube channel. You can find Justin Zacharias from the Muncie Music podcast scene there, or I'm sorry, the Muncie Music Scene podcast. There we go. You can check him out. He just finished up his first season, so you guys can go and check out those episodes. I follow him. I check him out. Really good stuff. So much love to sweet good brother. Again, today is my wife's official birthday. So Emmy Jane Timmons, I love you. You're beautiful. Happy birthday, sweetheart. We're gonna celebrate here in just a little bit. Shout out to my son Hootie Bob. I love you, dude. And I'd hate myself if I didn't do this. To the clique, you know who you are. To sweet my brothers, I love you. I can't wait to see you guys again soon. And sorry Terry and sorry Tanner, but I love you guys. But back it up, Terry. Put it in reverse, Terry. Toby Ray, be good at work tomorrow. Make your adopted father proud. Fill my shoes tomorrow with Uncle T. Love you guys. Brother, it's been a blast, but there's one question that hasn't been answered yet, and I gotta know. We asked it earlier. It's one of the first ones I asked. You were telling me earlier, you hear your music, you make people wait. You're coming through the curtain. Who is the one guy in AACW right now you'd step back in the ring and actually want to stand across that ring from? Title, no title, talent, whatever you want to do. Who's the one guy that you're like, I want a piece of that guy?
Man, that's a tough question. I love all my guys that work for me.
Who's the one guy you would come out of quote unquote retirement, quote unquote, you know, I'm this guy now, but I would get in the ring for this guy. Who's the one guy that you want to work with? Who's the one guy that you'd want to stand across that ring from and have a 15, 20 minute match with?
Man, probably right now at this moment, I mean, if I was going to, because he's been pretty hard on me the last few shows because he's questioning what I'm doing with him, it would probably be Rick Vidal.
Yeah.
Because he's called me out a couple times and he says that, you know, you want to put asses in seats and make some money. This is what would do it. And he even made a flyer of Vidal versus Hogg, and he tried to put June 19th on it. But, you know, man, I mean, it's got to take some time for me to think about that one, you know, if it is possible to happen. But, you know, I mean, Ricky's trying to push my buttons,
yeah,
and trying to question who I am and what I do and my choices. So, you know, I mean, if it happens, it happens. But that would probably be the guy.
That'd be your guy.
He's probably the one that's the most under my skin right now.
Yeah.
And be careful what you ask for, because if it happens, you could be sorry.
Yeah, this is very true.
So,
this is very true.
Brother, 2/3 the name, 2/3 the same name. Never
favorite wrestler.
Never stop searching for that fame.
Absolutely, man. Like,
I mean,
it's been an absolute pleasure. Again, Shane Cowsert, aka JH Hogg, owner and operator of AACW Wrestling in Kokomo. You guys go check them all out. Very great, talented roster. I will be there June 19th, obviously. The family will be there. I'm sure some friends will be there. Try to bring more people over.
I hope so.
Before we close this out, brother, I appreciated this.
Thank you for
I will
having
value
me,
the
bro.
stories, man.
I mean, I had plenty more, so if you want to bring me on again, man, I can set and do it again.
We could look at season 2, man.
We could do it all day long.
We could look at season 2.
We can do it all day long.
Brother, the camera's yours. Anything you want to say? Tell them about AACW. Tell them about your events coming up. Whatever you want to say, brother, the floor is yours.
Our next one is June 19th. Great guys, great locker room. Thank you to all the people that has been there 100% for me over the years, and the guys and gals that do stand with me now and continue to be there for me. I can't do this alone. Obviously, you know, it takes a team to make success. So as we move forward, you know, AACW doesn't just belong to me. It belongs to all of us. And, you know, I mean, you've even got a part in it. Your wife's even got a part in it, because you guys are fans too. But with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for showing the support. Thank you for, just everything you've done for me over the years. I appreciate it and love you all. Peace out. Peace, love, and happiness. Thank you, my brother.
Hey, thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for being on, dude. I've had a blast, dude. So thank you. Thank you guys so much. Episode 3 in the books. Shane Cowsert, a.k.a. J.H. Hogg, owner and operator of AACW Wrestling in Kokomo, Indiana. Check them out. June 19th is the next event. Look it up on Facebook, AACW Old School Lives. You guys can check me out on YouTube at Sly Eugene, or you can check me out at Shootin with Shane. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.